This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut. And on this week's Weigh-In Podcast, I know you guys wanted to get the untold story. We're going to put off the untold story. As you see, it is a solo shindig today. So with that being said, we're just going to kind of bounce around on potential boxing matchups and news for you guys today, with that being put into notice. So to kind of kick that off, I think what's going around, what I've been seeing on social media is Lamont Roach versus Shakur Stevenson. We'll dive into that. And then there's a few other matchups that we want to touch, potential matchups with Canelo Benavidez is coming back up, as, just so many more weighing in on a lot of that stuff. And just with all the boxing UFC going around, we're going to dabble in to some of that boxing and UFC news that are just currently hitting the cycle. So if we're going to get on into the boxing going on right now, I think, when it comes to Shakur Stevenson and Lamont Roach, I'm going to shut that down immediately. I got Lamont Roach winning all day. And I'm going to tell you why I have Lamont Roach winning all day. Because Lamont Roach is very well more than the best right now for what is set to go. And I think that because Lamont Roach has done just a tremendous amount of, when he showed us against Tank Davis, a tremendous amount of boxing going on. And I think that is something very due to be noted, that tremendous amount of boxing going on. And I just think that was a very well thing to be done. And I think, just to go across all of that and just to sit there and break that down, that is just, one of the things that we've definitely due to be noted. We noticed over about that we've noticed over and about Lamont Roach is that he's very well a great boxer. And when you say, does he come up against Shakur? Can he do it? Now, don't get me wrong. I think that's a great matchup, but I just think Lamont Roach right now is the guy. He is the hottest guy right now. He's got the hottest picks going on right now. And that is why I think Lamont Roach is the guy right now. And that's why I'm kind of sitting here saying, when you come in against Lamont Roach, you're gonna have to be interested. It's gonna be it's not easy. Got to make it. It's a hard fight. It's not, he proves he's the guy to stop Tank. With that being said, and if we get back in, with that being done about a little bit dabbling into that Lamont Roach, and if we go in and we talk about Benavidez Canelo, we say this over time and time again. I feel that David Benavidez, one of the best there is here, David Benavidez. I feel Benavidez has the best chance to beat Canelo. I feel like David Benavidez has what he needs to do that, to beat Canelo and to stop Canelo. And I really feel that because, just Benavidez, his style of boxing is very unique. And I think that there is a way that when you look at Benavidez, I think he has that power. I think he has the mentality that he wants to go through with this. And I know we talked about our mental best selves, and we talked about being our best selves and being your best version of your best self. And I think when we talked about that, we talked about how, that was the best version of what went on. That was the best physical version Benavidez his last couple fights has been able to put out. And I think that's something we do to be note, that I think David Benavidez, he's got it. He's there. And I seriously believe it's Canelo running from the fight, But right now we got Canelo trying to undispute the bout. So we talked about that before in the pod. That's a really good thing. And I think, when we talk about stuff like that, that's just a really good thing. And when we go across that we call that a potentially really good matchup. And, there's a lot of good boxing going around right now. When you look at this news, one of the biggest things that is really good to mention is this Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor trilogy. This is something that I want to see. Now we're gonna, how we always do it, right when we start. We dabble in on this. Our segments are always changing mid-epi. When we talk about this, that Amanda Serrano, and Katie Taylor is going to be a great matchup. It always brings a good fight. And I think, what's going on in women's boxing right now is everybody wants to undispute the belts. Everybody wants to be, we have so many, like Clarissa Shields, who was able to do weight class after weight class. You got a lot of them there that are doing good things for boxing. And, that are doing great things for boxing. And another thing, we're going to weigh in on this. This Dana White boxing. We have not come in to talk about that. I don't think we've ever broke that down. We're going to, that's another thing. We're just kind of going to get it while it's on my mind here. Dana White boxing, we're going to dabble into that today, but just to go back to that, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano had great, amazing fights. When you look at them, it's true craftsmanship. They always come down to the end. They're always great. You always get your money's worth and when you have Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor fight. And that's what I think. I think the fights bring it. And, I just think that's why I think that those are bring up potential matchups because, the Benavidez Canelos is a good potential. I do like Lamont Roach Stevenson. I like it because why? Because if Roach beats Stevenson, Roach is going to start taking them belts. And I think that's what he's going to do. And then if you start taking everybody's belt, and then now you face Tank and you undispute that weight class, now we say Lamont Roach has done something. Now, I'm already saying he's done something. Here on the way, and we're saying he's done something. He gave Tank, he touched the blemish of that Tank Davis perfect record. It's no longer perfect. Tank Davis has been beat. Tank Davis has to deal with Lamont Roach now. Now he has, I say beat, but it was a draw. As you all know, it was a draw, but it's being beat. You were figured out during that fight. That is why you didn't win the fight. So, as much as things may go in certain ways, I kind of feel we're getting a lot of potential good match like that Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. That's already done. That's gonna meet in the summer. Great for the schedule. I like, if many of you haven't heard, that Times Square boxing card we got coming up. Great. Boxing is doing a lot of good things, and I think, that is really great. On this podcast before, I've talked about boxing doing more out of the norm things. Like, let's have them in other countries. Let's do things in places that have not been done before, Times Square we've had Beat the Street, which was wrestling. There was a wrestling event for you boxing goers that did not know. Beat the Street was there in Times Square. They've had many things in Times Square. Now to bring boxing to Times Square, now that's what we're looking for. That's what we want. When we talk about, bettering boxing, and when we say bettering boxing, we don't talk about that, as I think of the word here for what I'm thinking of right now, we don't talk about that gimmick that Dana White is doing. That gimmick. You're a UFC guy. Don't start thinking you can go in and revolutionize another industry because you can't. You can't. Your UFC guys, they don't make money like boxing. Nobody makes money like boxing. That's why all your UFC guys, they want to get in the ring. That's why Anderson Silva jumped in the ring because they know that boxing money is better than that UFC money. And that's why they did stuff like that. And that's why I'm saying, Dana White, stick to your UFC, That's why so many of them have went to the PFL. So many of them are not with the UFC anymore. And I just stick to the UFC. Stay out of boxing. I understand you're getting into it with, I believe, is the Saudis who are already over there in the Middle East, already doing boxing. They're already rolling fights as much as they can, doing big stuff. Great. Let them do it. If you want to put your name to it and say, okay, I'm also adding some expertise, great. If you're going to say, hey, I think this is a megastar matchup, great. If you're going to start saying, hey, you don't got to pay them all this, make the money for yourself. Dana, don't touch the money. If you're going to bring us fights that we've never seen, fights that are going to pack a house, and we don't see somebody drop in the first round, and we're going to see an absolute shocker like Lamont Roach and Tank Davis, we're going to give you we keep doing it. But if you're not going to do that, and you're going to, short these boxers out, and they're not going to make the dime that they do, stay away from it. Don't come in thinking you're going to revolutionize a community or a sport because you think you want to do it. This is you just proving you can do it. Dana, if you do it right, I'll give you credit. I'll give you a lot of credit if you do it right. I know you're going to try this. If you do it right, Dana, you're going to get a lot of credit. When I say this, you're going to get a lot of credit for this. And I say that because if you do it right, everybody says, wow, good job, Dana. You don't do it right, everybody says, why were you there? And I think as we're just touching some of the combat sports news that is going around, we're just kind of that Dana White boxing thing. We're gonna see how that phase out. It just is another thing. And as we talk about a lot of that stuff, we talk about our most favorite who should have already fought Jake Paul, KSI. We talk about KSI. He signed another fight. When we talk about KSI and his stuff getting up to the next fight, we talk about this because you say, hey, now KSI is still sticking in the boxing sport. Now he's going up against Dylan Dennis. And what do we feel about this Dylan Dennis? Listen, Dylan, if this is straight to Dylan Dennis, you couldn't beat Logan. So now you're going after the business partner, KSI. What makes you think you're going to beat the business partner? What makes you think it's going to be any different this time? I don't think so. I don't see Dylan Dennis even winning that fight. If you wanted to know, I don't see Dylan Dennis winning that fight. As much as we don't say a lot about KSI on this podcast, and as much as we don't always praise KSI, I don't see Dylan Dennis winning that. That's KSI all day. I will always go for KSI to win that fight. Now, win this, come on, Jake Paul. But that being said, on the Dana White shindig of let me try to work boxing, it's like the same thing when, he turned into the as he calls it, the slap thing that he had going on. It was a craze. It got up there. Now I kind of think you don't hear as much as you used to with it. I don't always see those guys, the slap sport in the cycle as much as he did when it first came. And that's why I kind of think Dana White's just trying to figure out what he can kind of converge, as much stuff is going on. And I think, and I think that's good to want to experiment, but do it right. Do it right. Don't, set it up right. If there's matchups we want to see and you got guys on your promotion almost and you want to set it up, set it up. Set it up. Make it done. In the UFC, he doesn't like his guys to go over and box. He doesn't like his guys to be on other promotions, and that is the problem. If you're not going to co-promote an event, now we're not getting the biggest boxing fights we can get that are co-promoted. So you're going to have to lose some of that letting guys go another promotion pride and start letting, some of them really get that co-promoted stuff because that's what we want. We don't want stuff where we can't see a guy be on another promotion. We don't want stuff where we don't see something because right now what we want is that a lot of that co-promoted content. We want to be able to see some of this stuff get done. We want to be able to see some of these guys box and work really well. We want to see the matchups we want. We don't want to see Dana White's got a guy that's 15-0 and you're like, hey, you can't go fight that other guy 15-0 because he's not on my promotion. No, stop that. Stop that. We're not going to do that. There are megastar fights that happen, and in boxing all the time, there's cross-promotion fights. We're going to be, lose the pride. That's the stuff we're going to want to be seeing. And that's something that we want to put together is a lot of that. Dana, like I said, do it right. That'll be really great stuff. Boxing, I think, is on the up and up, and I think that should tell you why Dana White's trying to get into it. Everybody, it's up right now. The fights are looking good. When you get out there, you see good fights. You don't see stuff where you're like, oh, I didn't even want that. Like Lamont Roach went in there and absolutely said, hey, this is who I am when it was Lamont Roach versus Tank Davis. And everybody said, oh, nobody beats Tank. Nobody beats Tank. Tank runs but Lamont Roach just showed, hey, that's not true. I came in, I did what I had to do. And that's why I say that. So, when I talk about guys like KSI getting back in the ring and listen, some of those guys like Jake and them, as much as most won't want to believe, I think they brought some type of eyes, like Jake Paul's uh boxing bullies. You got kids who are like, okay, learn this boxing. You want to box. You want to do this. And I think there's still going to be those kids that say, oh, KSI, when he beats Dylan Dennis, KSI beat Dylan Dennis. Wow. One thing I want to see is, okay, can we get a KSI Tommy Fury rematch? That's what I want to see. I want to see that. Like, let's see where that goes. That KSI Tommy Fury rematch. I want to see that. I want to see. I think Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. I want to see that as well. I want to see that as well. I kind of want to see that as well. I say that because that was a good, and I rock my head back and forth because I'm like, either way, like I want to see. It's like I do and I don't. I want to see it. Part of me is like, I think Jake could have a better fight. The same thing with KSI. But to be noted that this is just really great stuff. And even let's talk about Logan Paul. Logan Paul getting back in the ring and doing some stuff. With Logan Paul's fight. Getting a fight going. I love it. Now we're seeing some of the stuff. That we want to see. Now we want to see these megastar matchups. Jake, don't get involved. Make sure your next fight, boxer. Get that boxer. Make sure you're fighting a boxer. You get yourself a boxer. I want to make sure I want them ranked. I want to make sure they have some notoriety. Don't just not set a megastar matchup up. You've already got that one on your record from Tommy. Now, let's go do big money fights. Let's bring those Jake Paulers what they want to see. Let's bring them fights the Jake Paulers are lining up the door to see. And that's something I'm talking about here, is that's the stuff I'm talking about. That's why I said potential matchups. When this episode, really, we're talking about all the potentials as a fan you want to see. I want to see Jake Paul box a true, real boxer. Now, so let's get this out of the way before he's all said. Yes, Mike Tyson was a true, real boxer, but Mike Tyson was retired. I want somebody that is actively boxing left and right. Somebody that's going to go in there and give him the row your boat, is going to show him, listen, Jake, you're not the top of the totem. And I like Jake. Don't get me wrong. I like Jake. But I want somebody to go in there and say, hey, Jake, sometimes you get humbled. And I don't think Tommy Fury humbled him. I think the Tommy Fury fight brought out a better Jake. I don't think he was humbled in that fight. And, I think, it's not about, to me, it's not about him leaving the sport and like that. It's about him being humble to the point where it's like, hey, you just got humbled. You got beat. Now you got to understand. Like almost like what Lamont Roach did to Tank Davis. Like Tank thought he was going to come in there and he's like, another fight. But it was different because Lamont showed the difference, I just proud of what Lamont Roach did in there, and just these next couple boxing cards we've seen that we got coming up, even like UFC. If we run down that UFC schedule, okay, April 12th, we got Volkanovski versus Lopez. I'm loving it. I don't really care for much else that month, but then we've got Muhammad, UFC 315, we got some good stuff. And I just think combat sports is doing really good right now, lining up what we want to see. And I think, as much as the boxers, like, I say Canelo, but Canelo is lining up to get undisputed again. So I don't ding him for that. We're seeing what we want to see now. And I think, some of the stuff that we're seeing is really good stuff. And I just know that we got to continue to see this good stuff. So as we look to see, as much as we look to see the Jake, what's next for Jake? We have to look what's next. We have to look what's gonna be next, And when we say that, we want, the best thing. We want what's best for Jake's promo. You know what I mean? We want what's best for Jake, for Jake's promotion, for everything, that Jake is lining up. We want what's next because we want that Jake Paul opponent. You know, as Logan's got a fight, we like that coming up, and that's what that's what we like. That's what we like. I just can't wait to see it. Just a lot of the stuff. I want to keep all this stuff up. With everything going on, one of the biggest and best fights. We want to see a lot of this stuff. We want to see it all. When we're setting up some of these events, some of these fights, we want to see it all. I think that is the due to be noted. For you guys, that's just what we want to see. We want to see it all. We want to make sure we're able to bring it all. That's just what we're talking about. So as we bring across, some of this boxing, UFC news and whatnot, you know, that's just some of the stuff we talk about. It's just some of the stuff we talk about, wanting to see it. It's just a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff when it comes to it. I think the MMA game is a little off on their game, but it's not horrible, it's still pretty good. I think that there's still some pretty good stuff. Let's bring this up for some of our MMA fans. We're gonna cross our MMA fans, and our wrestling fans. Bo Nickel, set to have another fight, and Bo Nickel took the MMA by storm, and I think that's a really great. He came with a wrestling background and really, really great guy. I'm not gonna say I'm the biggest fan of Bo Nickel because everybody has what was their favorite college wrestlers, and I always, when that was going around, I was always a Miles Martin guy, but I liked Bo Nickel a little bit because we shared, we both hit Spladle. So, with that being said, I didn't 100% say I hated Bo Nickel. Never hated Bo Nickel. It was more of a like, you know, he was one of my top 5 liked kind of thing. Just wasn't number one. With that being said, I like him as an MMA fighter. I like what he's gone in and done. I like how, he's gonna say he can do something and he does it. He does it. I think that's something we like. You like a guy that gets in there and does what he's got to say and does what he's got to do. And I think that's something very interesting for Bo Nickel is just getting after and doing what you're supposed to. I think that's something that's very well said. As we just get around, you hop around this MMA news as much as we can. I think that's something that is just really good, really great. You know, um, that's just something that when we talk about it being really good, and that's just some of the stuff that we really like going on right now. Is that we like how you got guys like Bo Nickel coming in and rolling through the sport. Those are guys that are getting stuff done. You got guys that we're seeing come over through the sport. And I think in terms of MMA, it's just happening really well. We're seeing really good stuff, and it's just I think combat sports right now is doing, I feel is on the up and up, doing really well. Is doing as they should and what they should. We're seeing some of the matchups that we want to see. And I think that's some of the best kept stuff that we can get right now is how we're seeing some of these good fights. Ever since that Lamont Roach, I really think we're seeing good stuff from here on out, and I think that has just been the change. Even we saw a great Shakur Stevenson come out. We're seeing so many great things come off of this. I think that you're starting to see. I wonder if you say is the best thing we could say here is the underdog winning, and I say that because is the underdog changing the sport? Is the underdog becoming better? Are we setting up these matchups where the underdog is doing better? And I believe we are. I believe it is getting to that point where the underdog is doing better, because you look at a lot of the boxing UFC, you're getting a lot of, just in boxing, that was an upset victory with Tank Davis, Lamont Roach. And I know we talk a lot about Tank Davis, Lamont Roach, and this episode has turned into that due to, the nature of, being, it's a one person show right now. And we did tell you we were going to give you the story of, the wins and how's, the happenings of what's been going on with the pod, but we've kind of put that on hold to kind of work on this. And it's just the wins, the hows is just something that, you really get into. And I kind of feel like that's something that we definitely are getting into and definitely are doing very well. Even then, the whens, the hows, the happenings of everything, because a lot of the sports right now are getting better and better. We're seeing these matchups that we want to see, and I think that's game changing. It's game changing for me. It's game changing. I think it should be game changing for most. To see matchups that we wanted to see, and now that we are seeing. I think that we're just getting to the point where we're seeing what we wanted to see. We're seeing, a lot of stuff. And I think that with the way, combat sports is going right now, we're going to keep seeing a lot of these megastar matchups. I think they're going to continue to build and build and build. And I think that's a good thing. I think that that's a really good thing to see the matchups and the way they're building. I think that's something very interesting for us. I think it's a point where we partake into what's the best, what's better, what can be better, what's biggest, what can be bigger, better, and happening. And I think that's just the really great part of what is best for us. And I think, in combat sports, I think, in terms of like where it's going, we're seeing a lot of big matchups made and a lot of shockers. I think, we'd like to see Lamont Roach, Shakur Stevenson. I think we'd like to see Lamont Roach get after it with a lot of those boxing guys. And I think we'd like to see a lot of that stuff go, just very well. We'd like to see a lot of that get after it. And I think that's just tailoring to boxing and UFC. Like, we want to see a lot of certain matchups. I think bringing something to Times Square, Dana White saying, hey, let me help this guy, over in the Middle East, set up mega star matchups. They're telling him, this is some good stuff. Let's get these young boxers. Let's give them, I hope you bring young up and coming boxers and you give them a stage. You give them, and I'm never upset to see multiple boxing promotions come out because there's just so many. I think it's a good thing. If you pay them big, they're gonna do it fine. I think that just everything all around, the UFC and stuff like this. I think what's gonna be really big, I think, is the Jake Paul PFL debut, and I think that a lot of people have kind of missed that PFL did. There was an announcement that PFL said they're going to allow Jake Paul that debut fight. And I think that's really great. So with that being said, this is just a little video coming on, giving you guys a little epi, continuing that streak of videos for you across this new year. And just really coming on here. So, I just wanted to say that, I'm just coming on, giving you a little video, letting you know we're doing good. But, as always, like, comment, subscribe. And with that being said, this is The Weigh In by Benoit. Well, with that being said, this is The Weigh In podcast by Benoit Chestnut and Sebastian Romero normally. But don't worry. As much as I always tell you, we will be back to our regular scheduled program. That more than likely will be next week. This is The Weigh In, out.